and then introduce our topic today. So this is the OneSTL Sustainability Lab. OneSTL is a collaborative sustainability initiative for the St. Louis region, the bi-state region, and we help coordinate things here at East West Gateway. So we have monthly labs the last Tuesday afternoon of the month. Today we're really excited to have Froggy and Griffin from the WashU Sustainability Exchange to talk about current projects and how to become a client of the exchange. And then our next lab on April 29th will be getting input for our St. Louis Regional Climate Action Plan that we're also working on at East West Gateway. So same time, same place. And without further ado, I will go ahead and pass it off to Griffin and Froggy.
All right. Hey, so yeah, we just did introductions, so I guess we'll just launch right into it. The Sustainability Exchange is a capstone project for upperclassmen at WashU, and I think the most interesting thing about it is it's an interdisciplinary project, meaning students coming from all different degrees can be involved in this, even students from different schools. As you know, WashU, we have the School of Arts and Sciences, we have the School of Engineering, School of Social Works, Olin Business School, and I'm leaving one out. Sam Fox School of Design, thank you. And so students can be engaged from multiple different schools in this same project. And what we do is we bring on community partners. I'm speaking to the camera. I'm in a room full of actual people. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we bring together community partners, and I use the word clients. We can use those terms interchangeably, who have a sustainability challenge that they want to have addressed by a team of consultants who are bringing together a range of skills. So a team, we usually have 3 to 6 projects at any given semester. It lasts for 1 academic semester. At least the group of students, the 4 to 5 students engaged, will work during that window of time. A lot of times a project will carry over from semester to semester, but there has to be sort of a transition built in to that in order for our team of students to pass it over to the next group and achieve some continuity. So we usually try to have deliverables that are achievable within a semester, even if it's a multi-phased project. So yeah, we have a project advisor then, who is a faculty or staff member at WashU, who is the liaison to the client and offers some sort of professional structured mentoring to the students who are on the team. Try again. Okay, so the exchange is, even though we engage students from all over the school, is housed within the College of Arts and Sciences in the Environmental Studies program, which is where Griffin and I work. It started in 2015, so that puts us at 10 years.
We should have a big party.
We should have a big party. How exciting. So yeah, we had a professor of political science and Liz Kramer, who's the assistant director of the Office for Socially Engaged Practice at Sam Fox, came together and saw a real opportunity to bring together kids. I say kids, students with a range of different interdisciplinary skills to solve problems and live up to our in St. Louis for St. Louis mission as an institution. So we've actually managed to do 92 projects in those 10 years and OneSTL has been a client actually. We've had corporate clients as well, as large as MasterCard and as small and local as Urban Chestnut. The nice thing about bringing in a client that's an actual for-profit business is that they will actually pay a consulting fee that helps to cover the cost of a student, of the faculty advisor for the students. But of course, to live up to our mission in St. Louis for St. Louis, when it is a nonprofit or a municipal partner, there's not a fee associated with being a client. This cool little graphic here shows what some of the sort of themes have been among the projects we've been doing. Climate and energy seems to be the bulk of our projects. Sustainable business initiatives and green building come in. I know that the students that we're going to talk about a couple of past projects. Students in the past have worked with municipalities on, energy audits, on, waste initiatives. They've worked with food and agriculture. You can see other things, parks and rec, emergency management. We worked with the city emergency management agency. Yeah. Right now there are 3 active projects. Do we have slides directly for them? Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So Dutchtown South Community Corporation represents a number of neighborhoods in St. Louis that are historically, we seem to have evidence that they're being marginalized in receiving municipal services. And so, for example, this is a graph of complaints related to waste, illegal dumping, overflowing dumpsters. And so, initially, one of our faculty members developed this relationship with the Dutchtown South Community Corporation to, and sort of asking this question of, can we verify that this is, in fact, being underserved by municipal waste services? And then what would an intervention look like? And so finding a similar neighborhood, Central West End, turned out to have the same population density and the same overall size, and so made a really good comparative. And so the students went into the field and they did everything from actually auditing the dumpsters for quality, including, are they completely unusable? Are they, new and fresh, or do they need repairs? And they mapped those out, and they didn't just map them out individually, because that's a lot of dumpsters, but they had what they called trash bashes, where community organizations brought residents out. They learned how to use an app. They were able to then go home and do a couple of blocks, around their area and contribute data to be then analyzed and compared. And so this semester, they brought Central West End in to sort of replicate that, so we could do more comparisons between the two.
And they're also now expanding into the greater Dutchtown neighborhood, like is what they call it. There's Dutchtown, there's greater Dutchtown apparently. And so bringing those neighborhoods in to also assess where the quality of dumpsters, as well as the frequency of or the amount of dumpsters.
On a sort of per household basis, and because the most updated information that the refuse division has is from 2009, right?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. And so the refuse division is not the villain in the situation, right? They are also a partner in this communication. They also want verification and information, and so this is really serving a lot of community members. And so, the students have brought together skills like geospatial analysis, running like actual GIS comparisons of dumpster density and number of dumpsters per household. They also are bringing in other data analysis skills as they're able to download CSV call data and run analyses of where more calls are coming from, and what that means in terms of areas in need of response.
One thing that the exchange does that we really highlight is also there's like the quantitative data, and like in this type of project, but also this project is kind of unique in that this whole semester they're really talking with a lot of residents and like putting resident stories to this data. So what they're hoping by the end of the semester, they're hoping to have oh, whoops, I think we had the wrong slide. There we go.
Okay.
It's more of something similar to a report. This is maybe some of you are familiar with this report from the environmental racism report out of the law clinic at WashU, the environmental law clinic, but that has some actual data and analysis, but also paired with stories of local residents that students are talking to make sure that their voices are what's really leading the kind of conversation around waste removal in Dutchtown and the neighborhoods around it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the projects that's happening. This is a project that is also maybe one of our longest running. This is the fourth semester that we've been working with Dutchtown. It's been a really great partnership, and it's bore a lot of fruit. It's created a lot of goodwill in the community for WashU through the relationships that we've built there. It is also if the advisor Scott, who is leading this project, was here, it's like it's almost getting to be too long of a project for the exchange when it's like, oh, we have to explain 4 previous semesters of work when it's like, oh, that's a good amount of background information that students just takes up too much time of the semester. The exchange is really good at a lot of things, but we're still very limited by the academic calendar, which no one else follows other than universities. So it's always a challenge when being a partner with community members. This is one of the challenges we have to face with partnering. I'd love to say if anyone has questions before we move on to the next project.
Question.
Yeah.
So who's responsible for providing and maintaining the dumpsters? Is it the city or the refuse?
That is refuse division.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're studying refuse division dumpsters. Now, there is a sort of a confounding variable that comes in when a commercial property contracts with a commercial waste hauler. And then, or.
Which they are seeing a lot in
Yes.
Central West End.
Exactly.
So that is like a caveat of some of the data again when comparing Central West End is like there's a lot more private dumpsters.
Yeah, which is also a conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the reasons that they're not having as much of a challenge is because the private entities are stepping up and basically just contracting superior services, right? So yeah, I mean, what they're analyzing, those are owned by the city of St. Louis, managed by the city of St. Louis Refuse Division, which is a sub-component of the streets department. Yeah.
I had a question about the maps that you showed of dumpsters in the Central West End versus Dutchtown. So if I'm understanding correctly, it didn't necessarily find a discrepancy. It looks like there were just more observations taken in Dutchtown, or was there a
Oh,
discrepancy?
no, these are
found?
blocks where greater than a certain percentage of the dumpsters are low quality. So quality level 1.
Oh,
So if you see a
okay.
dark square, that block has a whole bunch of dumpsters missing their bottoms or rusted out or unable to be functionally used or blocked by infrastructure so they can't be picked up by a truck. So quality, anything, the darker the blue gets, the more dumpsters you have that look like what's on the left there, basically.
Oh, okay, so all that gray in the Central West End, those dumpsters are good in that area.
So actually
Oh.
completely gray does mean no data. That, okay,
Oh,
you're
okay.
right. Gray means no data. But so white is mostly high quality dumpsters, dark is mostly low quality dumpsters. So yeah, in the blocks that have been added, this was at the beginning of the semester, we borrowed this from their midterm presentation. So they are actively adding more data right now, but in the areas where they have taken data so far, you can see it's high quality data. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're right, there's a lot less data there. At the time that this was generated, we will have a new one in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We'll have an update. Yeah, no, that's a really good observation.
Have you gotten any reactions from city departments or the aldermen about why they think their ward is getting less services or?
Yes.
It's been interesting. This semester in particular has been interesting for this project because the semester started, we got that huge ice storm. And so, which delayed a lot of the student work, as well as it also impacted the
Streets and refuse.
yeah, and then it has been because of the mayoral election, this has been kind of highlighted in some of that. It has also meant that it is harder for the project team to get some face time with whether it's local community, like they went to one of the neighborhood association meetings, but also both the mayoral candidates were there and took up, which is great. Like absolutely, we want to hear like the mayoral candidates should take this space. So it's just, but that meant that they've had a harder time this semester, I think getting the progress that they were hoping to done. So so in terms of like, I think that also has meant that the conversation most recently with some of the municipal stakeholders has been a little bit slower because of the space being taken up by the election.
It's just anecdotal, but I live in the ward just north of here, and I was riding my bike to a meeting at Thomas Dunn, right down Compton. I live just on Compton, north of Arsenal, and this is Compton, south of Arsenal. Just the striking difference between the maintenance of Compton Avenue as you headed down into these neighborhoods. Like it's fine in my neighborhood, and you get down there and there's potholes that I almost, crashed on. And it was just, I just was wondering if aldermen have to spend their money in other places on social services versus infrastructure, if it's a.
The
economic
way that money is
issue.
allocated is extremely complex, and I'm still getting my head around it. But I mean, St. Louis is notorious for this, like block by block, patchwork of high quality, low quality maintenance issues, city services seeming to reach the citizens and things like that. Little outside the scope of, well outside the scope of what we're doing. Yeah, but to speak to your question of sort of the hypotheses that local representatives have for why this is the way it is. I don't want to. I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, and it's not really our place to report what they've said through Dutchtown South, who is definitely bringing the voices of the community, to our student consultants. There's definitely, hypotheses around, racial justice. I mean, we already have a basis for this in the environmental racism report for St. Louis, and it does seem to be that the distribution of these services, or the lack thereof, is following some pretty clear demographic lines around the racial distribution, and certainly income distribution of the neighborhoods that are receiving high quality and low quality services.
So is there plans for a future class to maybe think about solutions or?
We actually,
Really
we've been
good
talking about
question.
it, because it is, like I said, we may do one more semester with Dutchtown, we're still figuring that out, but we're Scott Krumenacher is the lecturer that's the lead project lead on this. I am certain that there will still be some type of relationship. The hope this semester was also to like really give a lot of the data collection and stuff in the hands of Dutchtown South and the residents there, so that it could continue on in some way with whether or not it's in the exchange. But we're going to continue conversations about how what the partnerships look like, whether it's in a eventually a class all on its own. It could be because there's so much we could do with just talking about this one issue, but we also don't want to like it doesn't really fit any longer in the exchange for a number of reasons that I've already said. But
size and scope is
Yeah.
definitely getting larger than, as you can imagine, one semester project where you have to onboard everybody and then wrap up some form of a deliverable, even if it's a stepwise deliverable. As he said, so yeah, we may possibly see this one project parlay into an entire course at some point for our students.
yeah, I say that, and like, no, we don't have any representatives from Dutchtown South here to say like it's worthwhile to do that, like, and make that commitment. But I think there will be continue to be some type of relationship, whether it's what that looks like, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. Shall we?
Yeah.
See. Okay,
Yeah.
this one happened twice. There we
yeah.
go. Okay. So
Cool.
you go take.
So one of our newest projects that we've been working on this semester is with the city of Maplewood. The city of Maplewood, their sustainability advisory committee reached out to us. I think that's what they have sorry, that's actually what City of Clayton calls their sustainability. There's the I think it's the Sustainability Commission for the City of Maplewood. And they reached out and were interested in exploring the feasibility of creating some solar street lighting for residential and actually all parts of Maplewood. And so this semester, students have started working on kind of assessing that feasibility. And we really focus on thinking about the exchange through the lens of people, planet, and prosperity is one way of thinking about it. There's these internested independencies of sustainability. We kind of talk sustainability very broadly. So this group is really focusing on thinking about the carbon footprint, but also resident feedback on whether it's safety or concerns about being able to see or like too much lighting and air and light pollution, or whether it's, and then also like, is this a cost savings for the city to explore as well? So here's some things that they're looking at right now, whether that's what's currently available, what's currently there, what resources, the street lighting that's currently in Maplewood and its condition. Like I just mentioned, the financial analysis of installing new street lighting with Ameren, with rebates, with there's not really that many vendors out there that are doing this type of work right now. I think the city of Brentwood did something similar recently, and so there's also been conversation with them about that process of how much, what's the carbon impact of changing over to a solar street light, a number of other things that they're assessing. Yeah, so that's kind of that's where they're at right now. Like I said, this is a newer project, so the students have been working most recently. There was a recent survey that the Sustainability Commission did of residents of their concerns are on this exploring this, and so they're kind of going through that survey and kind of drawing out some conclusions about what residents are talking about. They're also talking with a couple businesses that would be impacted. Yeah, and so we see this probably going on for at least another semester, and maybe two, depending on how much the students get done this semester, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of an exciting project. In that, it could have some real meaningful impact, at least in the near term, for that students could say, hey, look, we were helping implement this change for city. One thing we haven't mentioned is all of our partners are St. Louis focused, so that like regionally focused. So we are really focused on being engaged locally, partly because of the way that we talk about community engagement, and it's much easier to do community engagement when you can hop in a car and go talk to the community partner versus, I mean, you do community engagement in Madagascar and that's much more difficult, but
Not through the exchange.
not through the exchange. There's we could do a different lab on that. That it's much easier, but also we really focus a lot of the course to think about the impact of equity on sustainability work, to think through the history of race and racism in St. Louis and what impact that has had on environmental work, because we have this interdisciplinary approach. We are thinking about and bringing students from different academic backgrounds. We're really thinking about how a lot of that is interconnected, whether that's through the business lens or through the perception of WashU in the community, or
The actual history of WashU.
and the actual work that WashU has done, which has not always been helpful for many community members. So really, that is a lot of why our focus has been on St. Louis, which this is just Griffin's theory of the case, is we could get more community engaged students. There's less of, that means St. Louis as a whole would get the resources of WashU and the students staying in WashU. We don't have a great number of students that stay in St. Louis, and I think if we can get more involvement, whether through courses or internships or however students want to get involved, I'm for, then St. Louis as a whole would benefit.
Yeah.
But that's it.
We do, the students who engage in the community during their tenure at WashU tend to build relationships that make them invested, right? In uplifting our community. We didn't build this into our plan for the presentation, but do you think it's worth mentioning a little bit about how we scaffold the students? Like, we don't just sort of turn them loose on projects.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It does take the form of a course for the first 5 or 6 weeks, 6 weeks, I guess. Every Tuesday they do a big workshop on a skill set. And so, we start with the broad idea of, how we sort of conceptualize a project through those 3 nested interdependencies of the planet, the people, and prosperity. And then and sort of then how they really design a project that hits those channels. And then we move into stakeholder engagement, stakeholder analysis, and we teach them skills for understanding, stakeholders and how to engage with stakeholders. And throughout this, on each of these given sessions, there is also a component that we build in that's around the environmental justice side. Right. So whether that be a session that's specifically on the racial history of St. Louis, or a section, what is one of the other lessons that we're building?
I mean, Scott's like.
Yeah. Oh, right. Environmental justice as a concept, right? And what environmental movements that have left people behind looks like, and how to not do that, right? And we're doing that. There's a little bit of that each week, while we're also teaching them skills like project management. How do you do a Gantt chart, which is a way to plan out your time management, your tasks appropriately. So they're learning management and project skills, and they're growing in their understanding of St. Louis and our history and the real implications and meaning of doing work in our community. So that's the Tuesdays, and then the Thursdays that they meet together, they're meeting just with their project team and their project advisor and working. And at the end of those 6 weeks, they basically start to meet twice, basically the full 3 hours each week, just with their team. That's 3 hours of dedicated quote unquote class time that they're spending, but we're also expecting them for every 3 hours they spend together during class hours, that the students are putting at least 3 hours or 6 hours outside of class into work. And that can be the trips to meet with the stakeholders in the community, that can be research, that can be any form of work on the projects that they're doing. So that's what the structure looks like as an academic class, and in terms of what the students themselves are doing physically and how they're allocating their time, what we're doing with them.
Yeah, so, sorry.
No, you didn't cut me off.
I guess I wanted to make sure, any questions on the Maplewood project? This is, like I said, this is fairly new, so we don't have as much as like the Dutchtown to report, but yeah.
This is probably outside of the scope of it, but I was just curious because one of the barriers to EV adoption is if people don't have off-street parking, so they need to drag a cord across a sidewalk or something. And one of the few solutions available, there are pilot programs for streetlights with EV chargers in some cities. And so I was just curious if that had come up at all, since they were talking about solar.
But they,
streetlights.
that, we're not, so.
Yeah.
We're not super involved in any one project. It may have come up, I know they recently just talked with, the city's like contact with Amarin, and they just had a stakeholder meeting with that individual. And so I wonder if it came up with them, but I hadn't heard that. And actually, that also, there's a funky street light that just came up in my neighborhood, and I wonder if that's why.
I don't know that it's starting here, but I hope that's
Yeah,
why.
I hope that's
Like,
the case,
but
yeah.
I don't know. If it's here.
But
Huh.
no, I haven't heard that. So I will say, we mentioned the advisor for the previous project. This project is being run by Kevin Hahn Petruso, who is also at WashU as their, I don't actually know what his title. He's in with the Center for the Environment at WashU, so.
I had a similar question. First, I would say that if a pole can charge a car, a solar panel to power the light isn't gonna be relevant, because you're gonna need a power source to come into the pole anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if we're talking about off-grid.
Yeah, it'd be a
solar.
different
But
setup.
It's not a question, but it's just like an opportunity for solar streetlights is piggybacking technologies.
Yeah.
Because our neighborhood had looked into, can we replace our hoods with solar lights and get security cameras put in there? And unfortunately, I live in the city, so we were talking about gunshot location. So, I mean, they probably hopefully wouldn't need that in Maplewood, but there's opportunities to piggyback technology in there. So you're going up there and putting useful things other than just the streetlights.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
You know, if it's the Internet of Things or
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Yeah, I'll be curious as to hear what, yeah, that will also hopefully come back in the like community survey that went out in Maplewood. Does anyone live in Maplewood?
Lots of people do, just not.
Yeah. I'm curious if anyone actually received the survey. Yeah, if some of that of like, oh, it'd be better to have whatever, you know, or.
So the deliverable for this would just be like a report.
Yeah, feasibility report, yeah, and it might be a couple chapters. I'm guessing that the students won't be able to finish the entire thing in one semester, but if it's here's an analysis of what community members were saying. Here's some corridors where I know one of the things that they've heard through community anecdotally is that there's a lot of streets that don't have no lighting, right? And so maybe it's the streets that have no lighting that we should really focus on. And here's a handful of those that, based on some GIS work that students might pitch, and then go from there. I'm not sure if they've actually started to.
They haven't started ground truthing it.
Okay, they
Yeah,
have,
they
okay.
have. They've been in Maplewood at night, going out and like determining high priority areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen a little bit of geospatial stuff come out of that group already. I've seen them do sort of market analysis stuff. Yeah, they've sort of subdivided themselves out.
Yeah.
And taking on different tasks as you do in a consulting team. Yeah.
You know, that leads to a question I had about both things you talked about. So what percentage of the students might have the GIS class? Because so much information is embedded into the maps and can be used.
That's a great question. So our students, we get a really diverse group each semester. The students express an interest in one of the projects and we will talk timeline in a moment here. We will predetermine before registration time what the projects are going to be for the coming semester. Sorry. And so we'll let students express an interest, prioritize their interest, and then Griffin and I sit down and we look at what program the student is enrolled in so that we can try and create the most diverse group. And we try and make sure we match at least, match the skill sets if there is a specialized skill set like a geospatial analysis, we want to try and make sure there's somebody with an interest in or experience in that on that team. We wouldn't throw a bunch of humanities kids on a team and ask them to do GIS work. But also it's part of the fun experience of doing this is to is to be part of an interdisciplinary team where some students break off and they do geospatial analysis, and then we come together and they integrate the financial analysis with the geospatial analysis as a team. And it really does, mimic what they would be doing in a professional consulting team, drawing upon their respective skills, but having to then meld those skills into a final product that communicates effectively with what their findings or recommendations are. So this does sort of bring us back to that idea that, as again, these are undergraduate students operating on a semester schedule. That you are not operating on a semester schedule. Part of what makes this successful is being able to articulate a project that has very clear goals, and that can be broken into chunks that are achievable in that span of time. And we have now been doing this long enough that we have a little better sense of what is achievable, what is the nature of the work that comes out of these students. We've also built, I think, at 96 projects, right? We've built a pretty robust history of projects and great partners, and we now know what's likely to succeed in this, within the scope of the exchange. And so if you're thinking that the exchange is going to be a good partner for a question, or that you or your organization is contending with, then we can work with you on like honing in on what does that specifically look like? What does setting that up for success look like?
I would say also in terms of GIS, we've had, we can't guarantee that, like, a third of the student team will have the GIS experience. What we can do is we have a number of folks on campus that are well equipped to teach GIS, and so the exchange is set up so the idea of the project advisors, they're well connected to everyone else on the university as well. So if you want to bring in a specialist on GIS, you can very well reach out and make those connections with the support of Froggy and I to like bring that person to get a little bit of background experience for students that maybe don't have that. GIS is the skill that we are being asked more and more from our partners for, and so it is also the skill that students are more and more interested in. So that's a great that's a great correlation. So that's great, and I think there's other ways if there's that we're developing as a program in other courses that I'm hoping to be able to reveal soon, that where GIS projects will actually maybe not be totally in the exchange, but could be somewhere else at environmental studies. So hopefully soon.
Yeah.
So you guys said you've done 90 plus.
Well, we haven't done 96. That's over the course of the 10
Yeah.
years, but yeah.
So I mean, whether it's the ones you've worked on, could you give us like, what's the project that you would use as your
Par
exemplar?
Oh man.
You can pick more than one, but because it's a little hard, like you said, the one project just got started, the other one's kind of been going along for 2 years. I'm trying to get a sense of.
Yeah, I'm inclined less to give you a par excellence and more to give you a more of a sampling platter, because I acknowledge the 3 we have right now are with municipalities, which is an interesting homogenization. So on the technical side, there was a group that worked with Urban Chestnut on water savings initiatives. They researched what other small scale breweries were doing. They researched a range of different technological and operations things, that they could incorporate, and they advised on, and that was a nice discrete question that was achievable within, within a semester. That was a 1 semester project, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was work with OneSTL, right? With
It's been a number of projects.
several, yes. The most recent one that I remember was about prioritizing interventions for residential energy efficiency, if I'm remembering correctly.
Aaron was the main point of contact, I think.
Yes.
So it's like, he worked on the greenhouse gas inventory.
Greenhouse
I don't know what
gas inventory, yes.
Yeah, that was the third. I've done 4 projects, so I've had 5% of your total. Yeah, so one, I could go through them really quick because they're all different.
actually.
One was a good research project, really early on. It was 2017, I think. We were interested in doing a regional greenhouse gas inventory, and those weren't common at all yet. But now we have 3. So we had the students just do research about what a process to create a regional greenhouse gas inventory would be. And so they kind of laid out a process. And then the next semester, the students started data collection and actually assembling, so it's related, but it's totally different kind of activity that the students did. And then they kicked it off, and then we had to actually get a consultant to finish it up because it was a semester and there wasn't enough time. And then the third semester was the same professor guide the whole time, looked at the greenhouse gas inventory and like took that to the next step and like, what could be a good project to reduce greenhouse gases? And that's where the residential energy reduction. So it was.
And they were really heavily, that's shortly after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. And so we're doing a lot of policy research in that one on how that could be leveraged. How any of the funding sources through the the Inflation Reduction Act could be leveraged to meet those goals and help OneSTL meet their goals.
And then our most recent project was about communicating climate change. So we worked with a bunch of students, and I told them all of the avenues of communication that I'm aware of that we're doing on climate change. So they kind of broke off into subgroups and developed messaging for the different avenues with social media, with making videos, telling stories. And then I had a group of students help me create a climate action education zone for the Earth Day Festival last year, which we're editing a little bit and repeating at this year's festival.
We've also worked with a city agency, with a city emergency management agency on they have a lot of protocols for disaster response, but they don't have a protocol or didn't have a protocol for seismic events, like major earthquake events. And so the students researched and helped to build tools for seismic response events.
I think there's 2 that I think are super cool.
Yeah.
One was before Froggy and I were here, establishing WashU's campus as an arboretum, and going through that process and kind of getting that groundwork done. That is now like a very well established piece of WashU. We have partnered historically a lot within WashU of having different departments as our community partners. We've moved away from that a little bit, mostly because
we're building more
I would like to, like WashU saying internal is stupid. And then the other one that did not actually finish due to like some challenges with the I'll tell about it, was partnering with a faith institution, Monument of Faith, in North County. They were wanting just to kind of have an energy audit of their operations, and also do some community education spaces around resources that were related to environmental work, specifically energy burden of their congregants. And so that lasted for a couple semesters, but due to some personal needs of the advisor who held that relationship, that's currently on pause. We're hoping to pick that up again in the future, but that was one that I find really cool, of like partnering with the church around their initiatives, and their desires. That was something that the students really enjoyed as well. So I'm going to talk about Ferguson,
Yeah.
our Ferguson project. Oh yeah.
Sorry, there's one question online too. Does the municipality, probably Maplewood, have ordinances that determine how much light or brightness is too much or too little?
I do not know.
Outside of our scope.
I mean, I'm sure that,
What's your opinion?
the students probably do know this, but I do not. And the Sustainability Commission absolutely does know the answer to that, or I hope they do, because, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I don't have the answer to that, but that would be an important thing that, I could get back to you on, in a couple weeks when I get their final
That'll
report.
dictate the kind of light and
It's
the
certainly-
cost of the
yeah.
light.
Yes.
Important.
So as Griffin said, we are a sort of umbrella over, like, we coordinate developing the relationships with the partners, writing up the memorandum of understanding, matching you with a faculty or staff advisor who can do the work, the students who can scaffold their experience. But when it comes to the details of what's going on inside the teams, we get a check-in at midterm, and we get we get a
Yeah.
little bit of check-in along the way, but yeah, and we get a final report at the end.
We're kind of air traffic controllers versus pilots of,
Uh-oh, our jobs are about to be gone.
yeah, well. So we have been partnering with the city of Ferguson for the last couple of semesters. This is, the project lead is Dr. Erica Bumpers, and who's in the Brown School. This partnership came out of Dr. Bumpers' relationships with the city, and kind of they came to us and thinking about, they've had a number of plans around West Fourth Avenue, and thinking about wanting students to kind of look at the plan from the Great Streets plan, and kind of and where things are currently, and kind of think about what revitalization would look like. Kind of what, and this was more of a sense for students to kind of really dive into community engagement as part of their learning. So the first semester they did a lot of this, and then this is now the second semester of working with this group. The first semester they did a lot of stakeholder engagement, and that has continued through the first half of this semester. And the hope is not necessarily to like recreate the plan, but more of like, what is community engagement? What is a plan for community engagement as the Great Streets plan is followed through? Is kind of where the students' work is heading. This has also been a really unique opportunity for the students. It is also our main stakeholders are the city manager and the mayor, and so it's which is very cool for students, but it also means getting on their schedule means that sometimes our projects don't go as quickly as the students want, and so that's kind of where this project is at. I would say our students are very excited, and they want to rush because they are undergrads, and they also are learning that things take time. So that's, yeah. And do you want to say anything more about this?
Yeah, I think
Where
after our last, last semester, they attended a bunch of city council meetings, which were apparently rich and wonderful experiences. And this semester, they attended city council meetings that gave them a little slightly different perspective on how city council meetings can go. And so I think there were some rude wake up calls there, and some of the challenges that come in municipal operations. When you have angry people standing up and monopolizing a council meeting, and it doesn't go the direction you thought it was going to go. I think even their advisor was a little like taken aback by these experiences. Now, obviously none of it was directed at the students. It was just, they were witnessing, municipal decision making, in all of its hiccups. But the direction they seem to be going this semester, in addition to like helping figure out what community engagement can best look like as Ferguson is implementing their sustainability plan, or their revitalization plan rather, is doing some barrier analysis, because their main stakeholder, the city manager and the mayor, have identified that they, there's a lot. They have plans, and they've derived input from the community in many ways, and other than some small sort of major budgetary, gaps between what they want to do and what they have in hand right now. There's a hang up in the, what's the word, in the city council voting process. And so they have this sort of new question that's arisen, which is just sort of why, or what is standing in our way. And so the students are now working with another faculty member who's really, or they're consulting with a faculty member who does a lot of stakeholder or citizen perspective research on sort of how do we figure out how the community feels about this, and and what the attitudes are out there by looking at the things people are saying on Facebook, by going into community dialogue pages and sort of deriving what is the community vibe around this, and how does that maybe play into the barriers to moving forward with carrying out what the community has said they want to do with the money for the Ferguson revitalization plan. So that's the last time I checked in, that's the direction that was headed. So really interested to see what kind of report they form at the end. But it's been a really interesting, really fascinating opportunity to see how decision-making happens at a municipal level and still hopefully be able to offer something insightful and valuable to the partner. Partner has been very, very happy with them so far. So that's the one thing we can say. They've really enjoyed, they made it last semester. They did a presentation of their findings at a city council meeting and got a standing ovation. So I know, it's really sweet.
Yeah, happy to try and answer questions. Like this is the project that I think is still the most fluid in terms of the direction students are going, and also there's a level of if we sometimes refer to like this is a little bit of consulting 101 for students, and yeah, the partner might change the scope and you might change the scope, and like how do you navigate that? So that's a little bit of what's happened with this project. And so they've navigated this all well, but it does mean that the deliverable is still a little amorphous to at least me, but yeah, happy to try and answer the questions.
I have a question that might help other people. I've developed projects in different ways through the exchange. One is like I had a general idea where I wanted to go, and I sat down with the professor and we created a project.
Yeah.
And then the last time, like I knew what I wanted to happen, and I sat down with the professor and Griffin a little bit, but I had a more concrete idea of where we were going. So I was wondering what you prefer now. Like, do you want people to bring a solid project or an idea and get hooked up with our professor and come up, like co-create a project?
I absolutely want all of our projects to come from community members. That's, I think that would be my preference. That is not to say anything other than like if a community partner comes with us with an idea that's already been fleshed out, that isn't because I don't want to do the work of thinking about it, but that actually is the starting point of the conversation. And what I don't want to have happen is like a faculty member be like, actually, I'm more interested in this other thing, and it's actually not of value to the community partner. So I want to make sure that what we're providing is meaningful for our community partner. So if that happens, however that happens, that's what's important to me. I just find that if a community partner comes to us and says, here's a question I have. I mean, Rebecca Hankins at Forest Relief is working with us probably next semester. Yeah. And she's been talking about this idea of, is there like anywhere that's doing tax incentives for planting trees? And has been wanting us to kind of partner.
Yeah, it's a slightly broader question than that, but yeah. What is incentivizing maintenance on private property of trees to reduce urban heat island effect? What can that look like?
Yeah, and so that's not necessarily like we want a report that is that touches on these four things, but it's kind of this broader question. The only reason we haven't actually like pulled the trigger on that project is that just capacity of how many students we've had in the exchange. Because it's a great idea and we're really excited about doing it, but
Looks like it's launching next.
yes, it will be launching, so yeah, but yeah,
So-
so I would say there, like, we want some flexibility, but also want it to be driven by our community partners mostly.
Yeah, and you have to give and take because
Yes,
to make it reasonable to happen within a semester.
I mean, if that, you are a phenomenal project manager and you know exactly what's achievable within the scope, and you come to us with a perfect plug and play idea, we're happy.
yeah.
That's not realistic.
Yeah, I mean, there was someone a year or so ago that came and was like, I want to have the exchange work on a project to convince WashU Dining to use my company's non meat product or like and I was like, first of all, I don't think students are great, they can sell a lot of things, but I don't know, I mean, I didn't try his product, I shouldn't say that, like, but I just don't have a clue of like that's an unreasonable thing to ask, right?
Also, that's not really a question to be.
Yeah, got it. It's like I want to.
Yeah.
Your own sales org.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our students aren't like, yeah, they're not labor for the business, they're supposed to be problem solvers, right? It was working with you on problem solving, hopefully. I mean, we want these relationships to be fruitful for the partner. We want them to yield benefit for you, your organization, your initiative, your mission.
If you could roll it into that tree project, we just heard about it at a meeting right before this. A big issue is maintaining the trees once.
Yeah.
That's exactly part of the
that's-
question, right?
yeah,
It's not just planting them, it's how do we make sure that like mature trees don't get cut down to reduce the liability, right? Because the cost liability, like the cost of getting it trimmed this year or cut down and never trimmed again. That is exactly the driving question behind this is like what few mature trees do exist in low income environments are at risk of being cut down as soon as they develop any issues. So what does that look like? Yeah.
We've kind of talked about some of this already. I thought the next slide was actually like future projects because so one thing that like, because we have this really community engaged focus and if any of you have partnered in some capacity with a academic institution, especially one like WashU, it hasn't always been reciprocal or mutually beneficial, and that is something that we hold very highly about the exchange is that we want it to be educational, but we also if we weren't doing we could find other ways to educate that if it were taking advantage of our partners, and so we think we want to make sure that we're establishing clear agreements with our partners and clear expectations and are communicating throughout the semester and also being good at telling people what we're not good at. We are not great at maintaining something, right? Whether that's a community garden or some database, because of the nature of students, it's transitory, and so we're really good at making a report, but making that report continue to be relevant, that's on our community partner. So we're kind of already in the process for thinking about the spring or the fall for the projects in the fall. Usually it's during the fall and the winter of the previous year that we would receive proposals for next year. And then there would be a little bit of matchmaking of who is the faculty member or the staff member at WashU that would be a really good fit for this project because of area of expertise, or relationships that they already have, maybe with a community partner, and kind of putting folks together. And then April, this is where Froggy kind of alluded to, is when students start registering. This also is a big piece of our puzzle, is how many students are actually registering for the exchange, and therefore how many projects can we actually take on. We'll kind of make everything, all those decisions, and in April and May. The reality is most of our advisors are off for the summer, so we try and get everything set up by May. I'm still around, and so I will, if that happens, then I will take over. But then when faculty and students come back in September, hopefully we get the ground rolling on the project. We have this here, this actually, the evaluation next step happens after each semester, as well, not just in May.
Oh.
Yeah, and just way that we didn't need to put it up there twice. We already talked a little bit about the course structure. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else there that.
Nothing special.
We do look for a number of things in projects, so. Something that we've had this, we've kind of adopted this language of, somebody who must have started saying this when the exchange started must be from Boston.
Oh,
But like,
this is actually a disciplinary.
oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay, I
it's
thought
an
it was
academic
just-
disciplinary term.
Oh, okay, well, wicked problems are, it has to be a challenging problem. We want it to be aligned with local and regional goals, that has measurable impact, has meaningful impact on our client, tangible learning outcomes for students, and yeah, a lot of these we've already talked about. One thing that isn't on here, and I'm surprised that it's not, but we prioritize work that it has environmental justice lens, or addressing environmental racism in some way. We really want to work in that space and have students work in that space. And so we do give preference to projects that are addressing that in some capacity. We have a pretty broad lens in terms of what we say is environmental, because of the internested interdependencies that we talked about of people, prosperity, and planet. So there's a lot of things that we kind of fit into that space, but we also know that race and racism has had a big play on that for here in St. Louis.
It's worth mentioning that the liaison, the faculty advisor or the project advisor, often is our bottleneck, right?
Oh, yeah, in terms of projects.
In terms of being able to get a project rolling, right? We need to not just have the client, but we need to have a faculty or staff member who both, has just enough expertise to be able to direct students towards the resources they need to solve your problems, right? And also is available, has the bandwidth or permission from their supervisor or whatever to do this. So one way to ensure that your project is quicker to get to as a state where, we can actually take it on is to have a relationship with, because I know you actually developed a longstanding relationship with a professor in engineering, and so you were able to conceptualize projects with, right. Now we absolutely, it is our job to help you find that partner. It's just, it can be hard, right? To find your faculty advisor from inside the school if we don't have at least some leads.
Which we do go on.
Actively do.
Yeah. I will say it is usually so just some faculty get paid to be a project advisor from us, but it is often time that the exchange is prime teaching time. I would say everyone wants, it's 2:30 to 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's what everyone wants to teach. So anybody, yeah. it's more of like, oh, I also teach at that time is often the challenge.
Or they teach a high enough course load, they can't.
Or,
They
yeah.
can't take off, so they need to either drop another class or, yeah, so that's, we are actively building relationships and trying to find people and keep them in our back pocket, you know, to deploy when we have a good partner idea that needs a faculty advisor. But if you happen to have relationships at the school and you can leverage those relationships, then, you know, it moves that project up faster.
And if you want those relationships, I'm happy to connect you. I mean, that's the, yeah.
Communication
Yeah, yeah. Happy to create all the coffees and happy hours I can.
So how long is the list? Do you keep people?
It kind of is always changing and there's multiple moving parts. So of projects that there's a lot of project ideas. I would say that right now, I think we talked about it the other day, and there's for next semester we're not gonna do this, but I think we had said there was seven different project ideas that we could go with. But not all, that's, like I said, there's a number, like none of them are totally fleshed out and totally ready to go, except for maybe forest relief is probably the only one that because we've been talking about it for about a year. So, and that would, but a lot of that is like, is this like the city of Maplewood is a project that's kind of a weird one because we don't like to do multiple semesters when the summer breaks it up. Nobody likes that. Just take 3 months off. Like that doesn't really, they've been good sports about it. We usually like to bring on 2 semester projects in the fall. So there's only that 1 semester, 1 month break.
3 months is.
That's also true. That's true. It is not, that is also true that yeah.
It does create continuity breaks that are a little more awkward than continuity breaks, you know, or than the transition that happened between the months.
Yeah, so I would say right now we have we'll probably have 4 projects in the fall, with a couple in our back pocket that we're kind of still morphing on, but the reality is like everybody has a couple. I mean, even I've talked to some faculty that have like, I'm thinking about like 2 or 3 projects, and then there's like, well, you can only do 1. You know, so
and we are like, the faculty are not going to be the driving force in this, right? The faculty are necessary, necessary elements of these projects, but you know, you saw the criteria we have for what makes a good project and what makes a project aligned with our mission as the Sustainability Exchange, and we're going to prioritize those ones.
And even if it's not with the exchange, we do have other ways to get community partners some resources from WashU, whether that's through interns or, like I said, there's hopefully going to be in the next year, our advanced GIS course will kind of be taking on some projects from community partners, or we're starting to like ask community partners for research questions for our senior thesis that our senior undergraduates can take on some local questions that somebody might have. That's kind of a new thing that we're doing as well. So if it's not the exchange, we'd still love to hear about it, because it's the only way that engagement happens is like getting together and chatting about it.
Yeah, so if your organization has something sustainability, environmental studies related that you feel like a partnership with WashU student labor, engagement would be useful for. We've had people bring ideas thinking the exchange was the right house for them, and it's turned into a great idea for an internship, right? Because it's like a 1 to 2 student initiative, or the one body is going to be enough to do this great idea.
I will say, we probably should have said this, because we are in a program at WashU that is focused on undergraduate learning. We are not the researchers at WashU, so like not only are we, but our focus, like if you're looking at somebody to work with you on an NSF grant, well,
Those are fun.
yeah, sorry, I forgot. there was a real nice half hour where I hadn't thought about that. And we're like, you know, but like, well, I'm happy to help you make those connections. That's actually not necessarily, we're working with students, if that makes sense.
Undergrad students.
Undergrads, yeah.
Yeah, so not students typically in class doing grant funded research.
Awesome. Well, we are at 5 o'clock and yeah, thank you so much, Froggy and Griffin. And I guess I should mention, since it came up, we did invite the students if they wanted to come
Oh, yeah.
to present or like speak to their projects, but they were all unavailable.
It's
a
like I said,
challenging
it's,
time of day.
Yeah, it is.
it is, they are in this class technically until 4 o'clock, but that means they have class at 4:10 or whatever, like so it's most of them do. So we tried really hard to get some students here, but unfortunately it's also a tough time. They're starting to see post spring break. It gets a little anxiety
feel
starts
really
going up every week. Yeah, for students. So.
I can imagine. Well, really great hearing from you both.
you.
And yeah, thanks so much for everyone who came in person and online. And everyone in person is welcome to reconvene at T-Rex's Lounge for some drinks. And then hopefully we'll see some of you next month on the 29th for the next one. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.